Do you love the idea of music in your teaching but struggle to find songs that fit your teaching needs? Today we're talking all about how AI can help bring customized, language focused music right into your classroom.
Welcome to the DIESOL podcast, where we focus on developing innovation in English as a second or other language. I'm Brent Warner, professor of ESL, and I'm here with Ishel Reyes, award-winning educator and street rapper. Hello, Ishel. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Brent?
Good. We're looking forward to testing out your skills in a few minutes here. We were talking about some fun stuff we're going to get into, specifically why we chose this episode for today in a few minutes. But we kind of came up on the idea of we haven't really talked a lot about music, right? But I know that you've used music in your classes for quite a while. Before we get into the AI thing, let's just talk a little bit about music and what it does for students.
Yeah. Well, one of the, obviously for grammar, you want students to experience language or to be aware of it in a more natural context. So songs tended to be the thing that I would go to, especially if it's a trendy song or something that is currently out there that my students might want to sing along to. But so over time, I collected different songs for different particular grammar points, but over time they also become outdated.
Yeah. I think this is the hard part, is like finding the right balance of these songs. And the other thing, we'll get into all this, but the other part I think about bringing music into the classroom is that it brings a levity and kind of helps bond students in ways. It's like if we're like a music list, it's kind of joyless. I don't want to say that if you don't have music, you're joyless, right? That's the wrong message. But what I'm saying is that I think music can bring a joy into the class that might not be present otherwise, right? And so, yeah, it's like
I was going to say many times students want to, when they hear this song and they all know it, all of them start singing along, and then it creates this little, like, it obviously is bringing down their affective filter, but they're also participating and engaging into some communal, I don't know, it sounds weird, but it's like a communal activity, right?
That's
because
right.
they're all taking part in it. That's why people love karaoke.
Yeah, for sure. And so, one thing I always worried about with music in the classroom is like, what if one student doesn't like this song? It's like I have to get over that in my headset, because it's like, because I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's just gonna have to be too bad, because if it's benefiting 99% of the class and one person isn't into it or whatever it is, like you're not going to capture everybody, but you're trying, and I think that's okay too. All right, but we are going to talk specifically about all this stuff, so we're going to jump over to the content and get really into how AI is helping this conversation. Okay, so Ishel, AI. So here's the thing, right? A lot of teachers maybe are like music, but are not musical themselves, right? Or they like the idea of bringing in these things, or like you said, hey, I had this collection of songs that I liked from years ago, but now they're not really relevant, or I have to kind of keep this search up all the time. And so I think part of what we want to talk about is how AI can help us kind of bridge that gap. And it doesn't have to be only about like authentic materials. Authentic materials are great, like if they're real songs that are pop songs out there, but I think there's other parts to music that we can really get into. And so we wanted to start with one of the very first things people started doing with AI, which is this idea of the rap battles. So Ishel, you've obviously seen the rap battles in the past, right? What are your opening thoughts on those?
If by rap battles you mean people in a YouTube video giving a verse and then the other one comes up with another verse, is that what you mean?
Yeah. So they kind of go back and forth between two people.
Yeah.
And some of these YouTube...
Okay, yeah, so a classic rap battle.
Yeah. So like the classic YouTube one is like, it's like Thomas Edison versus Tesla, right? And so like these are taken
Ah.
from real, like there were real rap battles between rappers, right, back and forth, kind of. So if you've seen like 8 Mile by Eminem's 8 Mile or whatever, you see those things.
Yeah.
But then they started having fun with them online, and so they started doing these like nerdy versions of them. And so you can use AI and type in, create a rap battle between such a character and another character, right? Character A and character B. But you can also, if we and we'll test this out right now, you can put in the concept, and it will take on the concept of something. So if I put in take the concept of write a rap battle between the concept of simple past and the concept of present perfect, where each is arguing that they are the superior method of communicating, and make sure that that each uses their own tense in order to communicate their ideas. Well, now we're going to get a rap battle between simple past and present perfect, and Ishel, you're going to take on the simple past, and I'm going to take on the present perfect. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Full force.
Yo, I'm the simple past, the tense of tradition, narrating events with no need for permission. I speak of the actions completed and done when a time is specific, the battle I've won. I wrote the stories from dawn till dusk with clear-cut ending. I'm direct and in brusque. I walked, I talked, I laughed and I cried. No need for the extras. I'm bona fide.
Hold up, past, you're old news. Let's be real. I'm present perfect and I've got mass appeal. I think the past and now with a smooth connection. I have walked, I have talked with no time direction. I'm about experiences and actions with effect that linger in the present. That's what I reflect. I'm the bridge between times. I'm the modern selection. I've changed the games. I'm the tense of perfection. Oh, and that's supposed to be the mic drop.
Mic drop.
Kudos to you for sticking through it. And if we haven't lost everybody at this point in time, but you can get the idea, right? So it's silly and like you can have a lot of fun with this, but at the same time, it's talking about what it does, right? You're getting an opportunity to kind of have some back and forth, to think about these things. Go, well, what is this actually saying? What's going on inside of these lyrics? And students could also look at these more closely and go, well, let's break it down. Let's talk about what it's trying to say, and also does it do a good job of explaining these things? Because if you get a big chunk of the idea inside of this rap battle, for example, then the students can have a sense of what you're looking for and then fine tune from there. It's a pretty good starting point, I think.
Yeah, and I think I'm remembering the times when I used Flip, formerly known as Flipgrid, and I would have students do presentations on there, and because they were repeating, they were refining, right? And so then they would internalize that language, and with something like this, they could be discussing the lyrics. It could be, even if they're just speaking them instead of singing them, they're going to internalize what they're reading.
That's right. Yeah, so lots of cool stuff there.
All right. So you could also use AI to convert particular tunes of a song, particular lyrics of a song, to have lyrics that you want. Maybe perhaps you're trying to teach a concept. And one that I recently did came about because my students have a hard time with the irregular simple past, and they just can't seem, they can memorize, but then they forget. And so I thought, well, what if I took a song that's catchy and has maybe like a little dance move to it, that's maybe on TikTok or whatever other social platform that makes people or draws people to recreate that song over and over and over, and do an irregular verb song. And so I asked Copilot to take the Savage Love song. So if you probably have heard of it if you don't know the title, but it's a very catchy tune, and it has little dance moves. And I asked Copilot to create a song for language learners that included irregular past tense and regular past tense verbs. And it gave me a pretty good song. And so I was thinking, I bet if I just told my students this is a song and played the music, they'll all recognize the music. In fact, they'll start dancing. I can almost see it because it was such a trend on TikTok. And if I can do that with a song, then they're going to, again, internalize.
Yeah.
And you've done something with it, right?
Yeah, so I've done this in many presentations. So anyone who's maybe seen some of my presentations on this, I do a Taylor Swift version, right? So I say something along the lines of write a parody of Taylor Swift's "Shake It Off," following the rhythm and the beat of the song, but the lyrics should explain the use of a, an, and the. And then what it does is it makes something. I've had a few times recently where it's like a little bit hesitant. So you kind of have, it says, "Oh, I can't do it," that's breaking copyright or something like that, and I just say, I don't want the lyrics, please make sure that you're just focusing on the grammar version of this song, and then it'll usually do it. But here's what it comes up with. I apologize to the Swifties. Something along the lines of I stay up too late, got grammar on my brain, that's what people say, that's what people say, I go on too many dates to discuss the grammar fates, but I can't make them say blah blah. And then it goes on for a bit, and then it says, because the articles a and an, you use them when you can, and the is definite, standing grand, it's all about context, understand, just think. So it goes on and on, right? But like sorry about that.
Diesel the musical.
I know, again, like all we're doing is we're putting up options for people to just like, I'm done listening right now. But if you're still with us, the idea here is, by the way, it doesn't always put these together well, right? So it's like it doesn't line up perfectly with the song. It gets pretty close, but it messes up. But that's actually what I like about it, because then your students can listen and they can go, wait, that's not how the song goes, that's not how the rhythm of this part goes, and then they can start interacting with it, and they'll start saying things like, ooh, I can do better than that, right? I can actually make this better. And so now they're going to start interacting with the grammar rules that you're applying, or whatever thing it is that you're trying to get them to talk about, and they're trying to fit it into the song. So they're no longer thinking about the fact that they're practicing the grammar. What they're thinking about is the song and how the words can fit into it, right? And so now the whole process changes, and I think that's such a cool way to sneak in an education, for them, right? In a way that maybe they hadn't thought about before. So I really like that a lot.
So Suno, it was going to be my fun find, but it's cool enough to include give it a longer segment. Yeah. So Suno is a program. It's a website right now. I don't know if they're ever going to come up with an app, but I predict that they will. Suno.com. You can enter in any description for what you want a song to include, and then you can change the genre of the music or the style you want. And it'll generate a song complete with lyrics, complete with the someone singing it, and they're actually pretty catchy.
Let's give it a listen.
They're fascinating.
What do we got? Have you made any?
So I thought, let me try making a little ditty for DIESOL, and let's do a bouncy hip hop.
It's a podcast, Brendan E. Show. They're teaching fast innovation in the LT. That's their game, research-based strategies, they'll light your flame. E-Shell's the queen, she'll guide you through. Brett's the king, he's got the breakthroughs together, they're a force. They'll make you shine, EdTech can be so divine. DIESOL, let the language flow. Innovation in English, let it show.
Yeah.
And, again, I was just playing around with it, and then I sent it to a couple of friends, and they said, hey, this is pretty catchy. And actually the lyrics, the prompt that I put in there, the lyrics were, I wanted a description of the podcast, and sure enough, it did. So
there you go. Yeah, so that's awesome. I mean, that's a catchy song, right? And you've shared a couple others. We can maybe put the links to some of these other ones just in the show notes, because
sure, why not?
Yeah, because they're fun.
If anyone wants to torture themselves with this while they're on the treadmill,
I don't know. I think people are going to be into it. I think we maybe have some singles. Yeah. But we do have actually. This is the song. We have to save this so that we can use it as like when we come on stage to do presentations together. Like that's what we need to have. So, so keep it. Please do not delete that one. So yeah, I like that. So basically, what Suno does is it AI's a whole song for you, and it does it by any theme that you want, by any kind of genre that you want, etc. Right? And so, so I want to kind of just talk about a couple of ways that you could use that. So number one, there are these websites that are great services like flowcabulary.com, and that, they're like, they write these songs to kind of teach concepts or whatever. And so you could do this now with anything that you want. And so if you're focusing in on particular, concepts, right, things that you're trying to cover in class, but like making it into a song for the students to catch along with, if you wanted to make it into vocabulary practice or grammar points, I think there's a lot of things that you could play with here, and just have them in. And so you could even just say, hey, oh, by the way, you can do this too, Ishel, with having it write lyrics. Like you could take the lyrics in ChatGPT, write me a poem or something, and you can actually give it the lyrics itself too. Is that right?
Yeah, you can give it the lyrics. So if you're not happy with it and you want to use your original lyrics, you can. And I was actually one of the, I think, I want to say positives I want to highlight about Suno, because this crosses over into artist rights and what that means, et cetera, et cetera. And Suno gives you the rights to a song if you're on the paid version. And so I looked up the price, and the price was $8 a month so it's actually pretty affordable. Yeah. But their list of guidelines was pretty comprehensive, and it was nice. I like that it wasn't just a website that didn't think that through.
Yeah. It's not just throwing it out there. They're kind of really being thoughtful about it. Yeah, I think Suno is tons of fun. So, like once you start putting in some things, I had some friends throwing each other songs back and forth, we talk sometimes about Ryan and Brian on the Check This Out podcast, and they were sharing some silly ones about each other. It's just, there's a lot of fun stuff out there. So so you can really have some good time, and then you can kind of make it really appealing to your students. And then the styles are all different. So that was like a hip hop one, right? But there's like country, and there's like kids songs, and there's all these types of things.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really worth playing around with those and taking a look. We'll talk a little bit more about these after we come back from the break.
All right. If you haven't dropped us a review, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, everything, and YouTube. We'd love to hear some reviews, maybe from our more newer listeners. So if you're out there, give us a rating.
5 stars. Or after you listen to the songs that we've given you here, 4 stars. Okay.
4 stars. We're optimistic.
5 stars, but 4 stars for the song. So there we go.
5 stars for trying.
Yeah. All right, so Ishel, there's a couple other ways that we can play with using AI stuff. And so we've talked before, we did a whole episode on image generation stuff. But I thought a cool way to do it too is if you're going back into the real songs the students are listening to, when they're driving or whatever it is at home, we can come back to this idea of like trying to break down those songs and understand what they mean, which is a classic language learning activity, really, saying, hey, what's going on inside of this song? But now with image generation too, you can also have students, for example, create a storyboard. And so they could go into the image generation. You could say, okay, take each, verse or take the chorus and then break it down into maybe 4 or 5 pictures, and then create some images that would theoretically be used for like a storyboard for a music video, for example, right? Not asking them to make the whole music video, but I'm like saying what scenes kind of match up with this. And so that can be a really different type of activity depending on the songs that students choose. If they're really much more for straightforward storytelling song, right? Hey, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, right? That's very easy. But if they're kind of more abstract and conceptual, then they might have to come up with their own ideas and say, well, how does this match up with the concept going on inside of here? And so I think there's a lot of really cool ways that maybe students couldn't have done this before, or at least not in a reasonable amount of time in a class period, right? But now you can just say, hey, let's get into it, figure out your ideas, storyboard them out, pop them into here and there, and then we can talk about how that shows your understanding of a song. So I think there's some really interesting stuff there.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. And I know that once students start looking at images, their creativity just skyrockets.
For sure.
They come up with stuff that I wouldn't have imagined before. Another thing I do like about the ability to change genre in the music, especially using AI, is that students can practice language functions by listening or singing along to lyrics, again, in different genres. And that, for example, something that is sung in a country style is going to sound and maybe be pronounced quite different than hip hop or pop, right? And so a lot of the times they have slower beats, and so it helps students to just practice.
Yeah, for sure. And you were saying something about like with your playing with this stuff with your nephew too, right? About how the vocabulary kind of changes based on the genre as well.
Yeah, the vocabulary changes, and also the strings of words. So for example, I had a pop song. I wanted to make a song for my nephew about monster trucks, and the pop song gave me like a long narrative about my nephew and monster trucks. And then when I went and I added in that I wanted a catchy tune for a child, because my nephew's young, it changed the lyrics and it shortened it to like 3-word phrases. And it was very catchy. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. This would actually work for I liked the song.
Yeah.
I was singing along with it.
Yeah.
Monster trucks.
Yeah. So this is you blasting it down the highway as you're going. So, yeah. And I think that this ties into that. My last point here too is that you can do pronunciation practice as well, right? And so as you're choosing those genres, some of them make pronunciation more clear, right? So if you said, for example, hey, make this as a kid's song, right? If you know, like, and then they're going to really enunciate the sounds on there. Whereas if you said, make it in the style of Ozzy Osbourne, and it's like, blah, 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 like whatever. And they're like, well, I can't really understand anything that's going on. And so I think there's a variety of choices there, and those can be good and bad too, right? So like you could really use it to talk about certain things. So maybe you've got a song that has a good example of what you're talking about, but it's inappropriate lyrics, right? So there's like right now there's like these real life rap battles going on between Kendrick Lamar and Drake, right? And so which so I think Drake it's not exactly I don't listen to a lot, but I think it's got kind of some of that mumble rap stuff going on where it's like kind of like the words kind of like marbles, and I'm probably wrong, but anyways, there are some of these styles that are like kind of the mumble rap stuff going on. And so you might want to actually make kind of like a mumble rap song and talk about what are the sounds going on inside of here, and how do native speakers understand this? Because a lot of times I'll get students they're going like, there's no way I can hear anything in here. Well, okay, maybe I can pop these out, maybe get some samples of it made through AI, and then play around with it that way. So I just think there's a lot of really interesting opportunities for us as teachers, and we kind of have music can be wonderful, but some of it is problematic, right? We've got a lot of heavy metal out there that is not talking about things that we necessarily want to talk about with our students, but the sounds might be valuable for what we're trying to communicate in a language class. And so I guess this is where we kind of have to get creative and really figure out ways that we can say, hey, we can do these things, we can have some fun with it, we can also make sure that it's kind of safe or appropriate for our classroom setting. And so so lots of cool things to play with here.
All right, it is time for our fun finds, and this time around I have a Netflix film. It's an animation or an animated film. It's called Wish Dragon. And it reminded me a lot of like the Chinese version of Aladdin. Like if you were to take Aladdin and place it into like the Chinese culture, it was a really sweet and good film. So I recommend it.
Awesome. Okay. I am going to talk about an artist, very famous worldwide Japanese artist, Takashi Murakami, who probably many of you know from his flower artwork, like these like super cutesy flower artwork. I never found the appeal of him. You know, I was like, it's like kind of too cute and too whatever, you know, for me. Like I didn't really understand it, but our friend of the show, Eric Roth, was here in Japan, and we went to Kyoto, and he had an exhibit, the Murakami exhibit at the Kyoto Museum of Art, and it was unbelievable. So it's actually crazy how subversive the artwork is and like what he's talking about. And so you see this super cute thing, which is like kind of the mass appeal one, but then once you actually go into his exhibit, you're like, oh my god, the stuff that he's making and the messages that he's kind of hiding inside of here, once you kind of get pulled in through the cute side and then you start to see what he's actually trying to communicate, really, really interesting. So Murakami, hugely famous artist, of course, but I never really paid much attention to it because I just wasn't into the style until I saw what the actual thing is inside of it. So if you're interested in checking it out, Murakami, he's all over the place online. I think he's got an Instagram account and stuff too. So Takashi Murakami.
For the show notes and other episodes, check out diesel.org/105 for episode 105. You can find us on YouTube or Instagram at dieselpod and all the other socials.
That's right. And you can find me at Brent G. Warner.
And you can find me at Ixy_Pixie. That's IXY_PIXY. And won't keep rapping.
You're free from our raps for at least 2 or 3 episodes. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care.
It's a podcast, Brendan E. Show. They're teaching fast innovation in the LT. That's their game, research-based strategies. They'll light your flame. E. Shell's the queen, she'll guide you through. Red's the king, he's got the breakthroughs. Together they're a force, they'll make you shine. Ed tech can be so divine.